Okay, welcome back here. Uh, we're gonna work on the bike shop model today. Let me do a sound check real quick. Test, test. Okay, that's working fine. Great. Um, so as you know, every Monday at 5 p.m. EST, I will be doing financial modeling live. Don't forget to subscribe. Come in and say hey. Um, You can come in and ask me for customizations from previous models I've done and ideas. I've got a kind of long, well, not that long. I'm doing this model. I got a vending machine, then I don't know what's next after that. We'll see. Um, but we've got the bike shop model today. We're going to go over expenses. Before I actually get started, though, we'll do our random drawing for a free financial model from smarthelping.com. Let me find that. What did I label it? There it is. So last week the winner was number 724, which they actually did respond, which is great. They haven't told me what template they wanted though. The first two winners have not responded. And this is I've just labeled. I've given everybody who ever bought a template a number in my list, and if they don't unsubscribe from the mailing list, I do every quarter. Then they stay in there, and you have a chance to win a free template. Any template. It doesn't matter if it's a $45 one, a 75, 125, 175. You can pick one of any one if you win. I use the rand between function in Google Sheets to figure out the number. There's about, oh, well, shoot, I didn't update the total. I think there was like 10 or so. I'm just gonna put, I'll just put 1285. I know that's close. So I'm gonna go ahead and put a 1 in here and then hit enter to make the spreadsheet update, and then whatever number pops in here is the winner, 966. So I will email you and you'll have a free template, number 966, for the fourth week I've been doing this. And I'll be doing this forever. So you always have a chance every week. If you want to know what your number is, it will never change. You can just email me and I'll tell you. Okay, so that's all done. I actually didn't realize how far I got on this model here. I got all the revenue logic done and actually all the cost of goods sold and all the way down to gross profit. So the next thing is cost of goods, or not cost of goods sold. I did that already. Operating expenses. And just an overview. So far, we've set up how we think the bike sales will happen. So you got a starting monthly sales and then a percentage monthly growth of those sales in each year. You've got the average selling price per bike, expected markup, which is going to drive the cost of goods sold, and then the cost basis. We've got a bunch of different categories here. 1, 2, 3 categories, and then other, which could be parts and accessories. Uh, so yes, this is going to be a little complicated. So I'm going to have to build in percentage of sales with shipment and percentage of revenue for shipping fees. So this, I'm going to have to get into this, but that'll be after I do the Opex stuff. I know this is going to be kind of complicated. I'm going to have to remember my thought process on what I was doing here because I can't remember at this second. Then there's repairs and services, 5 different service types. You can pick the month that this stream starts, which will likely be wherever the first month you start selling stuff is going to be. And that logic is just real simple: repair and service work per month and the average ticket price. I thought that was the easiest way to define this rather than trying to tie it to bike sales, because you could have bike sales that are happening across different states and you're shipping them, so it might not make sense to tie every bike sale to the amount of repair and service work you're doing. So this is its own configurable set of inputs. All right, so Opex. we're going to go in here and I'm going to pull from a similar template. We'll do what's got a good Opex, probably ad network. All I'm really looking for is a set of slots for, yeah, this is perfect. It has it all in one tab. We might not use all the cost of goods sold stuff there because it doesn't make sense for bike shops, but all the rest of the stuff will. So my goal is to get through Opex today and get down to EBITDA, maybe get down to cash flow, and we'll get as far as I can in 2 hours. Okay, so first thing we gotta do here is update the data validation to the new workbook. And I like to stagger these just so when I do my checks, I can make sure everything the formulas are correct. So this will have sales and marketing costs, general and administrative, and if you don't have enough categories to fit every single expense item that you have, you can always group them together if they're similar to make room, but this is fairly comprehensive for most use cases. So in here, you're just defining the month that the fixed expense starts, what the monthly cost is, and if it's a salary item, you're going to be putting payroll taxes in here, including that in the monthly amount. Give this a little wide width here. I've also got one-time startup costs and future capex that's outside of anything else that's being accounted for in the operating costs, if applicable. On this, I just try to keep things simple and easily configurable because just so many things can go wrong. So I just try to make it as simple as possible. And if you want to edit it, you can, or make it work differently. But this is as simple as I could get it, but still give you dynamic structures. So function total monthly revenue. We'll probably keep this. This is going to be a G&A. This could be like credit card fees or anything that's directly related to revenue. That's a cost that's not already accounted for. Cost of goods sold, we actually already have all the cost of goods sold happening with this logic, and we've already done all that, so we don't need this. Yeah, this is all. We don't need any of this. That's for ad network, so. But up until here, these are all good. So what you can do is define the items here, and I'm going to bring this down, reference each of these, so you don't have to relabel everything. Let's just drag all this down all the way to the bottom. What's the last one? Other for our, okay, that one. So I'm just going to use a simple index formula. We'll do if this is greater than, if this is less than the start month of the cost, then 0. Otherwise, index this data if E2, and I'm pretty sure E2 is the year, matches this. Yeah, E2 is the year. Okay, good. Then we got to lock E4 so it doesn't drag down. We got to lock the cost assumption date reference. We want to lock this horizontally, but not vertically, lock this, and then again, this is locked all the way. And that's it. So now we literally have every Opex working here. Now for these percentages of revenue, we will actually multiply the result by the revenue for the month. For these. So if there's revenue, there'll be a cost in these if you filled out any of these percentages. Oh, we don't need to go all the way down. All right. Let's drag all these over. Well, it's not necessary right now, actually. Let's make sure it's working. So that looks good. Good. It's staggered. That's referencing correctly. All right. That looks good. Now let's do separate totals. So total sales and marketing. Expense. Simply sum the top, everything above it there. We give it a space in case you want to like put percentages of revenue. And then we've got total G&A. Now, these G&A charges are actually going to go in G&A, so let me move this down. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So these are percentages, but they're going to be considered, it's like credit card fees. This will be and administrative. Now, if you go and change this name here, let's say test 1, it changes over here to test 1, it still populates the expense as it should. Okay, so we got sales and marketing. We have our G&A. Give this a space. And then total R&D. We don't need any of this down here because we got it up there. And it's fine if some things don't apply to your business, you can just zero it out. No problem. Make sure we're referencing the right amount of columns. Okay, that all looks great. So we can drag this over. And we have our lock or hide all these or group them so they can be hidden if you want to just show the subtotals. So that's cool. Right now, if you hit everything, you can actually see everything on one tab from revenue all the way down to total OPEX. Or you can expand it out to see the detail. Then we've got, so we'll put total operating expenses, and it's just going to be all these subtotals. And then we actually are already down to EBITDA for this, which is cool. Now in these, I always say with the line formatting, try to make it consistent. Now I want to put each individual Opex item as a single top bottom border, and then the totals of all those as a top and double bottom. Just so it looks kind of congruent and you can differentiate. Yeah, because see, we did singles here and then a double for the gross profit and double for the revenue. So we now have, we'll do 2 spaces for EBITDA. And then EBITDA is simply a math problem doing gross profit minus OPEX. And right now, the only non-cash item here, because there is actually a non-cash item, which is cost of goods sold. So we're going to have to figure out, well, not, I know how we're going to do it, but we got to determine or understand this cost of goods sold is not, it's a non-cash item, but it still is going to hit EBITDA because EBITDA is just earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, amortization. But it's not going to capture the fact that you might be buying your bikes that you expect to sell. You might be holding 2 or 3, maybe 2 months inventory or a month ahead of time. So the EBITDA number is different from the cash flow number, which we'll get to. But as far as EBITDA and net income, they both use the actual cost of goods sold, the number for that month. And it doesn't matter that it might have been paid for 3 months prior. The expense is recognized when essentially when the revenue is recognized, which is when you sell the thing. So let's see, did I go all the way over on this? Yeah. All right, we'll drag this over. The goal of financial modeling, for accuracy, you always want to be methodical and not too fast. You don't want to miss things, especially when you got a lot of moving parts. So right now, we're looking pretty good. I feel pretty good about this. I think we've captured all the assumptions that have been defined so far. Okay. So before we get into cash flow, we got to do this shipping, which is going to be so freight. I mean, technically, some people might call it cost of goods sold. Let's think about this. Is freight and shipping considered a cost of goods sold? Sometimes I gotta brush up. Raw materials, freight, ship. Okay, yeah. Okay. So that will go ahead of gross profit. We'll put it up here. So we're gonna add a thing called freight shipping. Now, the thing with this is, so freight and shipping, that expense is actually going to happen when the cash actually leaves for it. So it's not, so now we have to separate freight and shipping from the cost of goods sold. when I go in to do cash flow, because the cost of goods sold needs to be added back, and then the purchase amount whenever those items are actually purchases affects cash flow. But the freight and shipping will affect cash flow the month it hits, because we're going to actually define this on, well, it's going to be the same month as when purchases happen. So let's just start here. So the idea is, if shipping costs are passed on to the buyer, then it should put zero. Right. Oh, hold on. So we're trying to look at. Okay, so do we really need to do this? Because the markup, this cost basis should already include shipping in what the bike shop is paying its suppliers for the bikes. So if you bought, 500 bikes for, that's going to be kind of hard, complicated. Because if you bought 500 bikes for 160 or for $118, but let's say you had to pay for shipping. Let's say shipping was $3 a bike, so you paid 1,500 in shipping. Well, actually, you just add that $3 per bike onto. It'd be really hard. Okay, so this cost basis is going to be just on. It's not including shipping. So we're gonna have to figure this out. This percentage of sales requiring shipment, we're just going to assume. Well, this is fine. So this can stay, but it's not that big of a deal. This is just if the bike shop is going to pay for some of the shipping or not, and what percentage of the sales price is shipping fees for those percentage of sales that require. Basically, if you gave the customer free shipping with the sale, so then you got to cover it, so you got to pay. But what we have to figure out is the cost of freight every time there's a purchase amount. And I guess the first thing to define is, so we've got all these costs in here. These will come later down the pro forma. So we need to do a inventory purchases tab. And this logic gets fun. You listen to me try to figure this out because I can't remember exactly. So we're going to define. So we got our months here. We don't really need to do anything except for 60 months for the labels. And we want to say, so for one-time startup cost, we could put it here, but I'm just going to have it here and just make this its own tab and say uh, months inventory is bought. Let's see. I've written this out like 15 times and I can never remember. There's a certain way to word this. So it's like if I buy inventory for the next 2 months, and every 2 months I buy inventory for the future 2 months. And I don't want to write a whole paragraph here. I want to be able to simplify it. Um, let's think. Let's think. Months in advance to buy inventory. Does that make sense? And here you could put like 5, or no, that's a lot. Let's just put like 2 for just this. Make sure we can do this. So then we have, let's lock this, freeze. So then we have inventory purchases. So we need to count off every 2 months we're buying something. And we also need to count year 0 or time 0. So if, well, the first one's going to be different because this is 0. If this equals 0, then how the heck did I do this before? Let's go look at another template because I know, let's see, I did this for, I don't think I did it for the jewelry shop. I did this for one of these models. Not that. Oh, there's none of the SaaS models. What was it? What had inventory? Can't remember. Because we got to basically count if this is a multiple of this number here. And if it is, so let's just say equals integer. Int, not integer. What is it? Oh, int, yeah. So equals int of this, the month number divided by here. And if that's a whole number, then it means it's divisible by here, and that means it's got to be a purchase month. Yeah, this is what we did. So integer this. And then here's how we do the check. So it's never so simple. So this is the integer value, but we want to know before that, what if you divide the month by, what if you divide that? And now I only want to see when these numbers match. So this is going to be, all this stuff has to go into this. So integer check actual check. So if this equals this, then 1, otherwise 0. So anything that's a 1 is a purchase month. Now, and there you go. So every 2 months, so you purchase a month 0 for these 2 months, and then supposedly you'd run out by this month. Wait, let's think about this. If in month 0 you buy for January and February expected sales, then right, so you have this for here and here. Now month 2, you're ordering again, and this is assuming you get your purchases in the same month you order. So, like, now, and the reason why so I guess the further amount, let's say you did this to be like 4 months. So you'd buy 4 months worth here, and then you get 4 months worth. That gives you some room. If you start running out, or you're starting to run out by month 2, even though you bought for 4, you just had more sales than you thought, you can start ordering it sooner. But the the more months you buy inventory for in advance, the safer you'll be as far as not running out. But then you obviously don't want to buy too much because you want to make sure you sell as much of the stuff is that you buy, so you're not wasting and just have inventory sitting there. So, okay, let's just put this at 3. So we're buying month 0. We run out here, we buy 3. We got enough for then. So this covers 1, 2, and 3. In month 3, you order again. So then that covers 4, 5, and 6. You order month 6 to cover 7, 8, 9. So I guess you have some wiggle room there. Um, maybe 2 or 3 weeks of lead time. Because this, in theory, assuming you sell exactly what you think you're going to, this purchase in month 0 should last you 3 months in this case. So 1, 2, and all of 3. But then in month 3, you're buying again for the next 3 months. So you have a little leeway there if you order at the beginning of March. If this is January, February, March, you should have enough inventory to get you through March. And then in month 4, you'll get a new batch. Okay, that makes sense. Um, Now, the last part of this is we have to buy. This is where we get real clever with the logic. Um, so we want to buy inventory for expected cost of goods sold for these 3 months ahead. I'm paying here for what the cost of goods sold are for here, here, and here. So if this equals 1, then we do a simple sum of, we might have to do a sum ifs. Hold on. We might have to do a sum ifs. Because I need to somehow capture dynamically how many months I'm ordering for. I think I got it. If we do round up. Let's see, what does that get us? So that's 0. So 1, 1, 1, 2, 2. I think this might work. The round function can be very useful. Now let's say every 4 months. Look at that. I have now 1 for 4 months, the 2 for that, 3s, 4s, 5s. So this is good. I have a dynamic of reference. Let's put it to 2. Okay, that still works fine. You got 2, so you're buying these 2 months, you're buying here. These 2, you're buying here. Okay. So what do? We do if this equals 1, then we want to sum ifs here. Total cost of goods sold. Where is it? Here. We're going to go all the way over to 60 months, which is BL. I just want to get back over here. So sum if that. And then what am I referencing is the question. Well, let's make this real. Let's bring the cost of goods sold over. So let's say we know that is right on the same timeline. And all I want to do, oh, starts actually one over because it's 0, 0. All I want to do is buy, let's put this back to 4. I want to buy in this month everything that's a 1. And then everything that's a 2. And then everything that's a 3. Now the trick is, how are we getting this dynamic reference to work? We've got this, we know it's an integer, we get the like every X months, we can do that. I just need to figure out, what do we sum here? Like, how do I know? Okay, maybe this will work. So if this is a 1, I know it's a purchase month. Then sum ifs our cost of goods sold. If our criteria here, this is going to work, is equal to the month here. And this only is going to happen. Well, no. That's not right either. That won't work. How did I've done this before. I've done this before, but it's been a while. Okay, here we go. I got it. If this is equals that, then 1 plus the number before. Now what does that give us? There we go. I think that's it. So now look. 1, 1, 1, 1. I buy inventory. Hold on. Does this work? Every 4 months. So I buy it here for 1, 2, 3, 4. This needs to be shifted. The 0, 0 always makes it difficult. Okay, let's just shift all that offset 1. I think we're fine. Like this. And then we could say our inventory purchases, sum ifs, cost of goods sold, if this is equal, oh, if this is equal to here, or, wait, do I have to offset this too? Hold on, let's see. And I'm only doing it if if this equals this, which means it's true, otherwise 0. Okay, I think we got it. I'm gonna test it out here first. Hold on here a second. Oh no, I didn't want to hide. Okay, so we're in month 0. We buy 4 months worth. So we want to buy expected sales 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 542. Yes, that in theory should last us 1, 2, 3, 4 months, and then we purchase another 4 months here, and that should last us. That should be 923, which should be 1, 2, 3. These 4 months, 923. Okay, so this is working. The timing is right. Let's see if it's dynamic. What if it's every 2 months? Okay, I'm buying in year 0 for the first 2 months. 213. Yep. Then in year 2, I buy for the next 2 months, which is 3 and 4. That's 328. Yep. Okay, so this works. Let's say it's every 3 months. We'll put, I think this is working. So this is cost of goods sold and inventory purchases. Man, this logic is always the most mind bending, but this works, and this is very dynamic and it's very useful. Cost of goods sold, we'll just do this here. Light color. Right, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 50. Yep, okay. So you're always buying inventory in the previous for the next 3 months, and that'll last you. And then in that last month, you're buying another 3 months, and so on. So when we go to do the cash flow, we will add this back, but then subtract out this, and the timing's already there in the same timeline as this. If we did every like 6 or 7, 8, you could technically buy inventory for 12 months at a time if you were kind of crazy. We'll just do every 3 months. Okay. Now we have to do shipping costs. And I don't know the best way to make this dynamic because technically, let's say a 350,000 order might cost less than a $1.2 million order. You know? So is it just a percentage of total purchases? And you say, well, if on average my freight cost is X percent of the inventory purchase amount. Let's say it's, 5%. That should get you a pretty close number if it changes. If it's a fixed number, I can't imagine a 1.2 million order costs the same as a $350,000 order. That just doesn't make any sense. And we're not getting into the amount of units. I guess we could technically, let's see, do we have total units? We do. Let's put that in there. So we can do also total units purchased. So this works the same way. We just do reference the units here, January. That's how many bikes are sold. And then the purchase amount would just be this formula. But instead of summing up 15, we're going to sum up this, and it's going to be still based on all this logic because it's the same. Which one did I use? So summing 10 if 9. So now we're summing 16 if 9. We want 9. And then on the other two, doing that. This is this and here. what happened. If C7 equals C6, oh, this little guy here, 16, has to be D11. So this is actually the count of units, and now you could put in expected cost per shipped unit. I guess that might help. So 1,400 units is probably going to be more than 375. Make sure that's working. Yep. 707. Yep. 810. Now, we've got about as much data as we can get on this. The question is, what do we base freight off of? Do we say it's a cost per bike? So, because usually, well, here's what we can do. Here's what we can do. Cost assumptions is going to go right down here. We're going to say inventory costs, or no, freight and shipping costs, and you could define it right here. So from 0, so units purchased, freight cost. And this will be a G&A as well. Or no, this will be a cost of goods sold. But it's going to be its own item. So, dang it. Yeah, it's going to be, so we're going to have cost of goods sold of all this stuff. This is cost of goods sold of bikes only. So we'll have that. We'll also have cost of goods sold of freight. And then we'll have total cost of goods sold as the sum of those two, because they have to be separated. Total cost of goods sold. Freight shipping, I haven't figured out yet. So these don't need to have coloring. This can be top and double. And we're just going to sum. Okay, and then this gross profit is going to be that minus this. And so I used the right cost of goods sold here. So this 14 is flowing into here still. Yep, because I don't want to double count my cost of goods sold with the freight. But I need to add freight in here. So there's got cost of goods sold of bikes, freight, total cost of goods sold. And then this uses that for the gross profit. Perfect. Let's drag this on over. And we got to figure out this freight still. So what was I doing here? So between 0 and let's say, and these will be definable by the user. We'll do like, so the easiest way is going to be defining this as buckets. And it can be whatever your suppliers or whatever it makes sense, but what we can do is say between 0 and 500, if it's between that, your freight cost is X. Let's say $5,000. Total freight cost, not cost per unit, it's total freight. And then we can just go up. Let's just say it goes up by 1,000. It doesn't matter. These numbers will be specific to your situation. So we'll just make sure. So this is between 0 and this. And then we'll do and this. And at the end we could put and units ordered. Right, so between 0 and 500 units is 5,000. Any order from 500 to 1,000 is 6,000 units, $6,000, etc. Now this is a very, like, you can't really mess this up. This, it might take you some time to figure out if you get discounts or whatever for volume ordering, to figure out those little costs, because the cost per unit might vary, but this is, I think, the best way to set up this scale. And I see this all the time with kind of scaled ordering, so that makes sense. So we'll do freight in here based on, it'll be a simple VLOOKUP. VLOOKUP this. Now this is the one time where VLOOKUP actually is pretty good, and I would recommend it here. Not really another function that would be better than that in that situation. So there's your freight cost. Bikes, total units sold, units purchased, freight costs. This is another. Oh, let's lock them up. Lock B and C. Make sure it's working. So, oh, we don't want to order if it's 0. So if C18 equals 0, then 0. So 7, let's make sure this is working right. So 707 is 6,000. Yep, let's see, up to 1,000. And then if it's 1,001, it should be 7,000. I'll just test this real quick. Yep. And then 999. Perfect. Okay, this is working perfectly. So now we got freight, dynamic freight costs. And then we never get over, let's see, 1,500 orders, or 1,500 bikes ordered, 1,429. Let's say this was 1,300. Now that should go to 8,000. Yep, 8,000 if it's over 1,300. And then down to 7. Okay, good. That'll do that. Now we can do, so if I go to the detail, this is freight. This is actually only happening in the month of purchase, so this is hitting cash flow in the same month as well. Which is fine. These don't need to be bolded. These don't need to be bolded. And there you have it. So that's the correct EBITDA because those freight costs are going in the month only, and that makes sense because they're not amortized. It's just you happen to order that month, you've got a freight. So we got EBITDA here. Let's do this in brackets if it's negative. And now we're not doing taxes. We're not worrying about taxes at all, like income tax. We're just getting down to essentially net income before tax or net cash flow before tax. So other items that will go here are other cash flow items. So the next thing the next most complicated would be amortization schedule. So let's pull in one of those. So this would be to account for, if you're going to borrow money. If you're going to borrow money from a bank to fund some of the startup costs, then you're going to have debt. And so you get money in from the debt borrowing, but then you have obviously monthly payments out until you decide to pay that off. Or usually in these models, the month of exit, it'll assume that all the debt's paid off and that'll affect cash flow in that month. If there's a valuation multiple, if you don't do a exit month and you just run it, then it'll just go your monthly based on the terms of the loan. You'll just have this reduce your monthly cash flow by the debt service. So this will be selected from here. All the terms are fine. Now this will actually come though from the control tab there. And then the rest can be defined. So that's a formula. And then you're going to see here, we're going to do rounding for the date in case you have different payment terms than every 12 months. Also, I don't like this format. Let's change this. Let's change the format here to, I like that one. And then that'll always be the first month, but this is going to be a rounder. So we want to go instead of, if it's every 4 months or four payments a month, we do 12, round up 12 divided by this, comma 0. It's either that or it's the other way around. Let me see. So let's say every 6 months. Let me drag this down. So January, nope. Let's do this divided by 12. Let me format this. I hate this format that it was in. There we go. Now, every 6 months. So that's obviously not right. We need to get a 6 here. So you got to go to get 6 months. We need to do 12. Now, why am I having a brain fart? I'll tell you what, when you model for a while, things start getting real hard. Things start getting really hard. So, let's think here. Starting in January, this needs to say, let's say every 3 months. No, that's not working either. What in the world? Actually, I don't think we do round up. We just do 12 divided by whatever that is. There's no rounding here. There we go. So January, February, March, April. Oh, right. What am I thinking? So every 6 months would be 2. Like you paid once in January, and so this is wrong. See, the formatting of this date got me all messed up. So this, oh, I want to cry. Let me pull up. I know I've already done this. Let me pull up the enterprise SaaS. I think I did it here. Yeah. Okay. It's 12 divided by this number. So if we put 6 in here, oh my goodness, it's not a payment every 6 months. It's payments per year. So if there's 6 payments a year, there should be 6 payments. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. And it is 12 divided by the month. No rounding. They're divided by that. I'm telling you, man. Too much. You get on this modeling too much, you start to do some crazy stuff. All right, so 6 payments a year. So January, February, March. So there's 6 payments. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it was right as it was. If there were 3 payments per year, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. If there's 2 payments per year, now you see 1 Jan, 1 July, 1 Jan, 1 July. I'll put it back to 12. All right, so that was fun. So anyway, we have amortization. Um, we're gonna so that's debt service, principal, interest, total debt service. Don't need to reiterate that top. This will be top and bottom gray. So principal, I just want to simply take sum ifs. The debt tab, principal is D. If the month matches the month up here. Real simple. And then I'll make this tab red. And then interest is C. Same formula. We're going to go C here. And then total debt service. So obviously interest is only tax deductible, not the principal. If you're looking to do, oh, then I gotta lock all this, your proper taxable income calculation, but this at least allows you to be able to do the calculation because it calls out the right data. See. And then also we'll put debt debt proceeds, debt repayment. We're not getting into that yet. We first have to do some other stuff. So this is actually, if this, do this offset by 1 month equals this, then bring that in there, otherwise 0. So funding starts here and the debt payments start. If I were to have started this in March and did debt payments 6 a year, you see now, look, it starts in February, or February I take out the loan, March payments start, and we do 6 a year, which is every other month we got payments. So that's all dynamic. Put this back to January, put this back to 12. And there you have it for debt service. I don't really want negatives here. Let's increase these numbers a bit. That should be enough, I think, to do it. Let's do 3%. That do it. Not even close. So what's our revenue here? 175. Let's make our margins better. I just arbitrarily did these. Let's do the markup of like 70. And these don't mean anything. I'm just putting in random numbers. Obviously your business is going to be different. Okay. There we at least see some positive EBITDA. Perfect. And that's just running based on what I have in the cost assumptions for Opex, and your Opex is probably not going to be, well, it depends. It literally just depends. Point is all the logic will work when you put in some numbers there. Okay, so other cash items, we got debt service. Next up we'll do CapEx. And then we're going to do one-time costs, and then we'll do debt repayment and exit value and all that stuff. It's always important to do terminal value, I feel, to get a proper valuation. So this is real simple. If the month here equals the month on our cost here, or on this, then pull the value. Then we could lock on this. We don't want it to go horizontal. This we don't want it to go down. This is horizontal too. And sum that up. And we have CapEx. We'll give that a grouping. And this could have a grouping as well. CapEx, next, debt service, I guess we could bold this. Startup costs. Now this is probably the easiest one we're going to do. It literally just equals these. These will go in time at 0 as well. So we have EBITDA, debt service, all dynamic, CapEx, one-time startup costs. And then a lot of these things just make the model really flexible, so you can account for, there's slots for essentially anything you need to account for. Startup costs, anything else. So we did debt proceeds. I guess next is exit value. So this is a little bit of a trickier one. We have to do some things. So let's say it's going to be a multiple. We'll do a multiple of trailing 12 months. See, bike shop, probably EBITDA. I have to look, I have a valuation book, but I think it makes sense to do a multiple of EBITDA rather than percentage of sales. So trailing 12 months EBITDA of any exit month. Let's say we exit in the last month. EBITDA multiples, let's say, I don't know, 3.5. And we're going to get into this now. So what we have to do, and I'm definitely pulling from Let's see, I know I did this in the enterprise SaaS model. This logic is kind of crazy. Where is it? So we got to do all of the active months. Oh, here it is. So this is counting. Let's say we do an exit month on this. You'll see it pops up a 1 in the last 12 months from the exit. And that doesn't have to be in the last month of the year. It could be in any month and it'll just pop up a 1 in the 12 months trailing. And then give a multiple. So we want this logic here. It's in 270. Oh, it's actually close. Almost close enough. So approach these from the exit. We'll do that second. First we do this. So if and this is going to be the date. If January is greater than or equal to the E date of control, which is the exit month, and I think it's C5 on here, minus 11, then E4 is less than or equal to control C5. I'll have to check that. Then 1. Oh, yeah, we don't need a thing there or there. Okay. And it is C5. Perfect. Now, if I drag this on over, we can see our exit month is in the last month of the year, so it's going 12 months, and that's our trailing 12 months. If I did this for, let's say, October, and 9 times out of 10, it's just going to be the last month of the year, or the forecast, but it might not be for whatever reason, so it can be changed, or it might be just a 3-year forecast. So you can see then it starts in that month, and it gives you the trailing 12 months. And then since we're doing EBITDA, we'll just take this and do if this equals the exit month here, then just do a sum ifs. One of the most used functions, and we're doing some EBITDA if this equals 1. Otherwise, pull a 0. And that's a nice way to do a dynamic terminal value. Lock the control tab. So you'll see on that October, yep, there we go. So there's the exit value times, oh, then we got to do the multiple. So this is going to be times this for a terminal value. And that's another cash flow item we got to account for. Now, so we had EBITDA, debt service, CapEx, startup costs, exit value. And now we can pull that into here. So let's say it changes to 7 or 2 or whatever, it'll change based on the trailing 12 months. And if I change the date, put it back to December. Oh man, I set this up to be a negative in the last 12 months. I guess so. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. And these are just arbitrary assumptions. Let's, I don't know, raise this to like 5,000. And when someone actually uses this, they'll have to go through and put all these assumptions at what makes sense for them. Okay, there we got a nice big positive value. So we're almost down to cash flow. What's going on, Justin? Well, for a bike shop, so I was thinking normally it's either a multiple of sales or a multiple of EBITDA. And in a 5 month forecast, you're taking the trailing 12 months usually to get it because you don't want to just annualize the last month because you might get a big number. Because usually they'll come in and say, well, what's your 12 months, what's your most recent annual revenue? And usually in a forecast, it'll be the last month, so it'll just be the revenue of the last year times whatever multiple. But for a bike shop, like a brick and mortar bike shop, now I don't know. I have a valuation book here somewhere, and I don't know the rules of thumb, but I think EBITDA is more relevant than total revenue for an exit. Like if you're going to sell your bike shop to somebody. Thoughts? By the way, I love the feedback. You're the first person to say something relevant about the stream in 8 months. I've been streaming every week for 8 months. I've not had 1 ounce of anyone coming in here talking about anything relevant to the models. So, congratulations on that. Like usually on like a SaaS model, I would definitely do a percentage multiple on the run rate of the last 12 months of sales. But for brick and mortars, I think a buyer is more interested in the cash being generated by the business rather than the revenue, total revenue. They want to know what the business is producing in cash flows, which is more of an EBITDA metric, in my opinion. Yeah, well, I've been at it for about 6 years, and you know, all you can do is learn and get better and keep working, and eventually you get some nice things. If as long as you're good at negotiating, you'll be good to go. Uh, where am I at here? So exit value. We can almost do total cash flow. So let's add back cost of goods sold for just the bike purchases, and then so this is added back, and then we'll just take the purchase inventory purchases will be the actual cash coming out, which we did all this stuff here. You missed the inventory purchases logic here. This was a fun one to do, and it comes up a lot if you're dealing with anything with inventory and inventory forecasting. This is pretty good logic to know. So you can go back and watch that on the rerun when the video's done, I guess, if you want. All right, so we got this we gotta do. So okay, got it. Got it. No worries. No worries. It just takes time. You just gotta, I mean, literally read about. There is a good business book. I wish I had the name of it. It's got like literally thousands of rules of thumb for all different kinds of valuation for different businesses. Like it's so good. It's worth it every penny. I can't. The book's somewhere in my office. I don't know what the heck it is. But it gives you all the rules of thumb of, and this guy does so much research on it to figure it out. It's crazy. But again, it's always rules of thumb because at the end of the day, it's what will somebody be willing to pay for your business, and you know, it's depends on all kinds of stuff. All right, so we're trying to get to cash flow here. Uh, we're adding back the cost of goods sold, but not the freight, because that's already baked in here in the correct time with this. But we do need to add back this and then included purchases. So we've done that here. And let's try to get to cash flow before taxes. Obviously, taxes are just, they're so varied, like they can be so different depending on the situations. I usually, sometimes I'll include taxes if it's like a depreciation heavy model that you need to know pre-tax, but this is kind of like, we can do a pre-tax here. Yeah, oh, it's a really good book if you're doing any kind of work with valuations or trying to figure out, well, referencing rules of thumb on how different businesses are valued. Uh, yeah, I'll link it. I'll give a link to it in the description box because I can't get up right now and find it. But I actually have two of them from two different years. The guy probably updates it. I think he updates it every year, every so often as well. So I'll try to find it. It's definitely a good. I've used the resource a bit. Okay. What was our last? So EBITDA, we want to add debt proceeds, subtract debt service, subtract capex, subtract startup costs, add exit value, add cost of goods sold, subtract inventory purchases. And I think we're good. This will be a bracket. So now we can figure out minimum equity requirements and start doing some investor stuff and IRR calculations here soon. This will be a top and thick bottom. Uh, Making sure I didn't forget anything here. Cumulative cash flow. But yeah, I love the questions. I love the feedback because this stuff, a lot of things are, and just like if you ever took an accounting class, which is where I came out of a while ago, about a decade ago, I graduated with an accounting degree. There's so many things that are subjective or it depends on how you do things. So it's always fun to talk with other people on what they think. Okay, so we've got this. This is accounted for. This will be negative the min of all the cash flows. And then if this is 0, there's enough. Yeah, okay. So we're working our way through. So at the moment, the business takes $1 million to start. Now this is another point that when I first started, a lot of people don't think of is your startup costs you got to account for, like your stuff you got to do before you can even open. But you've also got burn that might be happening for whatever reason, so you need to account for that and your expected, if you're raising money from investors or trying to figure out how much money you need to start the business, you need to account for the accumulation of negative cash flows in the beginning. So really, your initial investment is going to be a combination of factors, and it's usually not as simple as just saying, well, I need X, and that gets me this, this, and this. But then, assuming you're running at a profit, that might work. But if you're not at first, that should be shown. Okay, so I think let's just double check this formula here. So we're starting with EBITDA, adding debt, subtract that, subtract, yep, 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 yep. Okay, just making sure this is all got all that in it. Now, one thing we got to do, let's say if there was an exit, let's say you only wanted to do a 3-year model, so you're only going 21, 22, 23. We've got to put logic in here to stop all the assumptions from happening. Let's see, we could probably start. Yeah, I guess we got to do all these. So if this is greater than the end month, then 0. So when I get to the end, which I don't know if I'll get there, I got about another half an hour here, maybe longer if you guys are going to stay around. I do discounted cash flow analysis, and I'll do a net present value, but it's on an annual basis. So I'll just have period 0 and then period 1 through 5. And then it'll be the resulting cash flows of that for the project, for the investor side, and for the owner side. So there's no need to know, and I'm assuming XNPV is to account for cash flows from irregular periods, like the XIRR, but it will not be needed um, since I'm just normalizing the cash into period 0 through 5 on an annual basis to do the net present value of that. And I just do the present value of the future cash flows against the initial equity needed. And if there was no positive, and I assume in these models that all the equity that's going to be required is upfront based on the burn and the initial investment and all that. And then when distributions start is when um, essentially the burn is over and you've now got some cash to distribute to that. And it's actually took me a while to figure out the logic to do that properly. Um, because if you were to have a big cash expenditure like halfway through the model, you have to account for that in figuring out like if there's a positive cash flow for that year or negative, because it won't show up exactly right in the minimum equity requirement, like the running cumulative. But I will get to all of that once I get through. Once I get to it, I'll get to it when I get to it. All right. So we got to paste this in here a million times. Make sure it doesn't change anything. Yep, you probably hear the dings, I'm assuming. Um, Now I have used the XIRR in think it was the self-storage model I did, which is really cool. It was like up to 6 funds and all with their own IRR, like hurdle waterfalls. And so I had to put it on a monthly basis instead of annual because it had to be that granular. So in that case, I had to use XIRR to do the checks. Okay, if I put a bracket on here, I don't think it'll make that noise. Yeah, there we go. All right, let's drag all this over. So that should stop after the 3rd year. Yep. My general approach to these financial models is I'm trying to make something that's usable to the most amount of people, so I have to build a template in that lens. So sometimes you might not see very specific things, but uh, sometimes it's good because then it broadens the use, the availability to use it without having to make modifications yourself. So I try to focus on just making it super as dynamic as possible. Okay, good. These actually don't need to be because they're just based on that. So that's already zeroed out. What else do we got to do? I wasn't tuned in at the time when you introduced that. Okay, so and you might have to stick around to get the whole context, but I'll talk about that in a second. Um, Basically, I let the user define if they want to, assuming so you run all the assumptions, you get a final equity requirement. And let's say you want to fund, 50% of that or some percentage of that with debt from like traditional P&I loans through a bank. So let me just paste this in here real fast. I think I can drag this down. So you can see the debt schedule here is just a regular amortization schedule. And the finance amounts based on what you put in here. So you can see your total equity required before anything happens. A million. Let's say you wanted to fund 350,000 of it with debt that goes into here. You can put in the interest rate, etc., payments per year, and the start date, and that flows through back to the cash flow. But it's just a regular amortization schedule. And I also assume on exit, if there is an exit, that the whatever's remaining of the debt will get repaid, and that's going to come out of cash flow. Um, Now, as far as investors, they can define the percentage of distributable cash flow that will go to the investors if there are investors. Otherwise, the rest of the equity requirement will just flow down to the owners. Now, I've actually never got that in depth with the weighted average cost of capital, and I don't even know if it's relevant here or how relevant it would be, but I just do a simple, um, you can do debt if you want to raise money or some of the financing through debt and some through investor. But the main goal I'm trying to do is get people down to operational cash flow, how much you're going to generate, what the business might be worth at the end of the forecast, and what are all the assumptions that have to be true for that to happen. Okay, this looks like it's all working. These, okay. Okay, we are getting down to it. Opex. I'm gonna definitely drag this stuff down. Well, so a sensitivity analysis can be defined by a bunch of different things. Like technically, you could say this is a sensitivity analysis because it already is in the way it works, and you obviously weren't around for the big last week, which is when I put together all the revenue assumptions. But essentially, you could say, you know, this is all a sensitivity, and you could change all these variables to see what happens. Now, it's not going to display anything all at once. You could probably do a nice sensitivity analysis on the exit value based on like 5 different multiples. And but because there's so much going on with the model, you can't just like run it 10 different times or 10 different ways and get an output that's like 10 different outputs based on changing X, Y, and Z. There's just too much going on. However, you can have like 10 different workbooks. In a workbook one, you have, your sales growth at one level, the price at another, or costs at one level or another, um, or different exit values, and compare the results of all of them. Now in Google Sheets it might be better because you can use import ranges and you could actually get the results of all 10 in one spot with import range. But technically, if you read the definition of sensitivity analysis, this is in itself a sort of sensitivity in itself with the way all the assumptions are set up. Okay, let's finish this here. So we got sales and marketing, G&A, and R&D. Okay, that seems to be working. Oh, these are percentage of revenue, so that's already going to zero out. And here. Okay. This. Okay, so for this we gotta do it for this as well. So the debt stops, and then so we forgot that. So debt repayment. So if this is the exit month. Then take the debt minus principal paid. Okay, so we're zeroing out the loan there on the exit month based on what's been paid. 17, 42, that's about right. Debt balance. We'll put debt repayment. So if this equals, pull the balance here. And it's really crazy the amount of time that goes into these models when you get into it. And then when you're actually working on a job, like I do a lot of custom work, you'll do something, but then there's like every single situation has different assumptions, and the time it takes to really do it right and accurate, it really it really adds up. So subtract this out as well. Okay, I think we got a good cash flow number. So now if we do cash balance, we can actually save. So we start with this much in the bank. Plus the owner's amount. And you're using this first one here. So you start with 540 in theory. And then you use this. So this should get to 0, and there we go. So 0 is always going to be the max. The minimum cash position is when you hit 0. So this is just solving for the minimum equity required here. And just showing, kind of proving it right in this. Equity funding. Okay. Well, we need to do, so this is all before taxes. Pre-tax. Okay, now that all this is good, I can convert it to an annual. Let's see, do I want to do any KPIs though? I might down the road, not right this second. So let's do convert this to annual. And then we can start with the distribution schedules and discounted cash flow analysis after that. And executive summary, we'll also do that. So annual, we're just gonna zero. We don't need only 5 periods. Go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's put this back to the end of the time. Alrighty. Sum ifs. And we're just gonna take the monthly figures and annualize it. Total. If the year matches the year over on the annual, we're good to go. Just lock the relevant stuff. So we want that to move. We don't want this to move. And this cannot move. Paste this all the way down through. Now these are revenues, I think. Sum ifs is really, I can't tell you, like, sum ifs is one of the most important functions. It's just in everything. It's really useful. All right, bring this down in here. Then really one of the one of the things that you should exhaustively do is sanity checks on all the stuff to make sure what you're getting is what you should get, especially when you got a lot going on. Now this one used to get me. So debt proceeds, we actually have to make it. So on the annual tab, this has to equal the monthly amount here. And then after that, we can just sum if it matches here. Because it might not be in year zero. Most likely it is, but it might not be. Let's see, debt proceeds. Debt balance is fine. Yep, that's fine. This is fine. Let's see, debt repayment. It's got to come down. Exit value. All of this. This here, that can stay. Okay, now we got to check. So here's our first check. Does this equal the monthly ending balance of cash flow? Good. So that's true. And then does this one equal that? True. So both of these being true is a good thing. It means that at least as far as our annual pro forma goes, it matches to the penny what's happening on the monthly. And we can see by the ending cash flow pre-tax being the exact same for both here. So that's good. I don't gotta go dive in and figure out what happened. Uh, man, I've never had this many people stay in this long, so we're gonna keep on going here. Uh, so screw it. Monthly. So we got the monthly P&L, annual P&L. Next up, I guess now that we got these, you know what? Let's just do the discounted cash flow analysis, I guess. Yeah, I think we're good to do that. So I'm going to take a template I got from a different template that's done. It's got a distributions tab. And I'm going to paste it in here and make sure we don't mess up any of the references. So here's where we're getting to with the net present value and all that stuff you were talking about. All right. Now, before I get into let's just work our way top down. Okay, so we want cash returns. So that's going to be any positive value we had. And this is probably this when you're on a model and you're getting into cash distributions and contributions of like a business model, this can give you insane headaches. So I put together these, let's see, what's this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines of logic to solve, and it could literally be any combination of cash flows. This will give you an accurate contribution and distribution amount that matches, that doesn't double count anything, and it's harder than you think. So first we have cash distribution. So any month down here in the final cash flow pre-tax, any month we want that's a positive value. So sum if the whole row, if the year 2 matches the year. So I'm getting all the positive cash flows that can exist. Right? So that's like I made money that month, put it in here. I don't want to see any of the negative ones. I just want positive cash flow. And then let's remove the exit value for this just for a second. Just so the numbers all look kind of close. And then I want, oh, whoops. So sum if that matches, and then obviously I gotta put in the identifier there to say I only want values in here that are greater than 0. And then in the cash outlay, I only want values that are less than 0. So now I don't think I need any more. So now we have total cash out, like profit from the business, and then total negative values, which there's a lot of, and here's where this gets tricky because this is why this is important. In this business where you're purchasing inventory, and I did it every 3 months with this logic here. So now you are having every 3 months, you got a bit of a negative cash amount here. So we need to look at that. And we look at the positive versus the negative, and we also have to look at the initial equity required that was contributed. So we have, which is let's see, what did we do here? So remaining equity to use, I think we did. Let me look at this again. This is even still, I've done this probably 100 times. I got to check what this calculation is. So D277 uses, this is cash flow before equity. Okay, got it. So we want cash flow before equity. So this number here, which is essentially all the startup costs less and inventory purchases, less the debt proceeds from the bank or whatever you got funding from. 12, that's this one. Make sure is that negative. Got it. And then this one's negative the total amount. So here is your the starting amount of equity that you actually had. And then this equals, this is the same here. And then that's it. And now you can see this total here is giving you, okay, for year one we had 2.9 million in cash returns, but there was 2.8 million in cash requirements. We had $540,000 of equity from the initial startup funding, less the startup costs. So we can use some of that to offset the negative cash here, and then the remaining is what's actually distributed. And then that just flows through all the way for 5 years. And so this total here is 7,303,000, and now that should match this here. So you can see, yep, 7,303,000. So that matches a running monthly cash flow before equity. This 7,303,000 is coming in here. And that's a good check too, because you know now, okay, the cash that this model has produced, the logic that produces this cash flow, matches the total in and out cash flow here, which is important. If that doesn't match, then there's an issue. Um, and then if you look, this actually does, so this doesn't include any equity funding. This does, this offsets it on based on what can be distributed. So you start 867 is the min. So this whole cash flow thing here is essentially the sum of this. But it's done in a way where let's say we had some big costs here, and let me just put like, I don't know, $2 million in the first year. Now if we go to our distribution, oh, let's see how do I do this right, because the equity still goes up for here. Let's say the first year was no profit. That's a simple way to do this. Let's just say 0, 0, 0. So there's no revenue for year one. So all these, I got some revenue, I guess, from the, let's zero this out too. Okay, what else am I getting revenue from? I thought index 19. Ah, here, okay. These got to be zeroed out. Okay, so if there's no, there we go. So let's say there's no revenue. We got all burned in the first year. Now, distributions you can see for year one are 0. And there's no positive. Um, and we've now have a bunch of equity we need up front. Once we get through that and we start getting returns, any returns after accounting for any cash that's required because the initial equity is used up comes out of here, and then the remaining is like the net cash that's available to go to investors and owners. And that logic, I can't tell you how long it took me to get this so it made sense, but it does now. All right, I'm going to undo all of that percentage stuff because, okay, back to distributions. So this is your just kind of cash flow, net present value. We don't got to make any adjustments here because it's all working. So this is project level, this kind of a cash flow. There's the present value, net present value. Then we have investor. So this is going to be negative any amounts contributed by the investor fund. And then their share is defined here, 10% in this case. And then the owner, their share is 1 minus that. That's okay. So theirs is this negative here. And we got our sanity check on this row to make sure everything matches. And there's a net present value for the owner side, for the investor side, and the IRR, which will always, the project level IRR is always going to be somewhere in the middle of the investors and owners. I get there's way more complex ways to set up joint ventures, and I've got all different models for that, but this is the base one that I use for general business models. Is just a simple, the investor gives you some money, you give them some percentage of the distributions, and then that's how we're running all of this here. So let me edit this. Do a little chart for investor and owner cash flow. Make sure we got all the right references. Okay. That's always a danger. Um, always a danger when you're copying stuff from other workbooks is some of the references are still going to the other workbook, and you need to make sure that's not happening. All right, so cash flow distribution, so that's done. I guess I could do, so executive summary, let's do that one. This is just a high level financial view of all the annual pro forma essentially. And it's good if the user just wants to see without having to look through the details here. This lets them just see the high level financial. Essentially, this is like an income statement, but I'll have cash flow items on here as well. All right, get our references fixed. That's fine. Year end, this is irrelevant. I could put actually annual bikes sold. That's a good metric, which is just, now this will pull mostly from here. So total sales. And actually, this bottom part is accessories, but uh, it depends on what the user's defining it as. So we'll just do that total. Revenue, simple revenue tab here. And this will also have a check to make sure it matches. And this is a good check to have because you're making sure essentially all the high subtotal rows match in combination with all the low level stuff. It depends. It depends on the model, because if you're doing a SaaS model, you definitely want ratios to do with like LTV to CAC, customer lifetime value. Um, if you're doing, let's say, a rental business, you probably want, or a self-storage business, you probably want average revenue per square foot or something like that. So it depends. Generic ratios, I usually do a debt service coverage. That's the main one, and then just margins and percentage of revenue for all the different main expense items. All right, gross profit, G&A, sales and marketing, research and development. Now let's make sure our EBITDA matches. So what are we at? 7,535. This is 7,535. Good. So that matches. And we can see our profit margin, debt service coverage. Make sure the debt service tab's referencing the right debt service. All right, so taxes we're not doing. CapEx we are. So get debt service, CapEx, startup costs, definitely proceeds from exit. And this is like a shortcut version of a balance, or not a balance sheet, but a cash flow statement. I only do three statement models in specific. I have a generic three statement model that can usually take most of the data you get out of here, and it can go into there, into the income statement, and it will produce a balance sheet and all that. But I don't do a single one, like three statement model for every model, because it's just too much, and there's so much variation in those. But most of the data you get here, you can turn into a three statement model pretty easily, and that's why I try to get really granular with all the different uh, financial line items. Proceeds, debt repayment. This is not relevant for this one. Now we also have to do add add back cost of goods sold for bikes, and then reduce purchases. That's here, and then this is this here. Okay, and then so this should all be the same except minus this, and then add this. All right, the question is, are we matched up here? So 11, 7, 18, 704, 11, 17, 18, 704. Okay, so we've got everything. That's good. We'll update these charts. revenue. These are just some basic charts that are likely to be in a slide deck. And then EBITDA. All right, so this is going well. Let's see, project IRR, that's on the distribution schedule. Here, equity returned is equity required is here. Cash returned is this. So there's your equity multiple and project ROI. And now same thing for investors. Oh, what's up? What's up? Is it important? All right, I'll be right back. Okay, so we got investor IRR, investor equity required is negative here. No, that's not negative. Investor cash flow, this total, there's them. Now let's do the owners. IRR, equity, cash, and that. Okay. So that's good. Make sure these references look good. So we've got executive summary, we've got distributions. We don't have any visualizations really, or that many, so we're probably going to do that next. Anything else? It's just the index tab. No, man, we are getting there. This is great. All right, so visualizations. Now here, I basically want to get all kinds of stuff. I kind of wanted, I try to do themes or make sure all the charts are the same at least, or same style. But so we'll probably do revenue. Will just be revenue, gross profit. Oh, gross profit, EBITDA, and cash flow. But I don't want this after equity. I want this one. This. And we'll do cash flow in the actual operating years. Okay, so those are like the key financial line items. Put a legend on there. and those are annual. Now the formatting of this, I usually do a gray background with a black outline, and then I guess that's okay. Try to keep it simple. So you've got that. What else do we want to put? Probably we definitely do bike sales by type. It's a stack chart, that'll look good. So let's try to find that data. So, oh yeah, we got it. So this is this total. And these are good things about being granular with the assumptions and output on the monthly and annual detail is you can get these nice comparison charts. So we can see the total or total bikes sold and how much are made up of each type. Make this a stacked. So there's the total bike sales by type. There's actually bikes sold. And then we definitely will do, we'll do one here also called bike sales by type, sales revenue. And we'll do the same thing, but now we'll just go down one to here. We could also do a cash flow, annual cash flow. Pre-equity, so we'll do essentially the project's cash flow. And then a nice one to do with this is the monthly cash flow and then the cumulative on top of it. I like to do those usually. So we got monthly, or I mean the annual, and then the cumulative of that. Make sure did I do, yeah, okay, that's got all that. So there we can see one second. Oh man. So one thing I'll tell you if you're going to be get into this or you like this or whatever, you better be good at time management. And when you start to get busy, like literally there's unlimited work. You will have more work than you can ever possibly handle. And it gets overwhelming. So don't take on more work than you can do at one time. Like I usually only do have work like for the next week because it's just it gets crazy. All right, now this. So cash flow, cash flow, cash flow, cumulative, 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 cumulative. So 6, 7, 8, 9. Did I pull the right rows here? Cash flow. Yes, I did. Okay. I also like to do that on a monthly. So we'll do like monthly cash flow here. It's also important to make sure your ranges always match the chart. We're going to month 0, so that's important, or else you won't see the last month. These will be low. Okay, now I don't like this. I want this to be a line. This is interesting because here you can see with the inventory purchases happening every 3 months, there's your ding to cash, and then here's when you start to make some progress, and you're now up, up, up. So that's kind of cool to see actually with the inventory. Now, if I did inventory purchases, let's say every 6 months, you can see how that visual will change. It's now much longer time period between the divots. Now we still get to 10,950. It's almost the same, which it should be 10,850. It should be because the same amounts being taken out. It's just you have bigger chunks. Or if we did less, we could do inventory purchases every month, every single month, and then it's almost, yeah, it's just there's not any divot. And the reason why we have this here is because with the bike shop model, inventory is probably going to be a big deal. Now it depends on how many months you're buying in advance. Um, it just depends on what your strategy is. So there's like every 2 months. And because we're expected more sales, we're purchasing more and more every time we do it. But obviously more sales means more revenue, so our cash is going up. So that's a good one. This is monthly and cumulative cash flow monthly. Oh, we already said monthly on this. So this is one I always put bike sales. This is annual. Annual cash flow is monthly. What else do we want here? So bike sold, bike sales. See if there's anything else unique to this type of model. So we did amount sold, dollar sold, that we did cost of goods sold. No, we didn't do that, but we don't need to. Gross profit. I think I mean, monthly cash and cumulative, annual. this out. Okay. Okay. Uh, well, I mean, we've gotten through the whole executive summary, the distributions. Yep. Hey, Gabriel, I just saw your email, and as soon as I get done with this stream, I am going to figure it out and get you over the because I think you said you bought two of the same thing or something. Um, I'm assuming you just did that now because I don't see any notifications yet for any sales or orders. Um, but I will deal with that as soon as I finish this, which I'm pretty well. I'm not. I mean, I'm not going to finish the whole model, but I'm pretty close to being done for the day. Let me see here. Do I want to do anything else? All right, I will sort this in a second. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, I guess this is a good stopping point. Yeah. Well, so today is like the first day I've actually had Justin in here, who's was commenting. He's the first person in 8 months to make a comment on anything. I'm like, I'm dying to have feedback on stuff or just talk to somebody while I'm streaming. I've been doing it for 8 months. He's the first guy. You're the second one in here, so that's cool. Uh, I do it every Monday at 5 p.m. EST. Now this model's about done. I might actually finish. I mean, the rest of it's just checking some stuff, adding an index about each tab, and then it's done. So I'll be doing a vending machine model next week probably. Um, but glad to see people in here. It looks like finally we might be gaining some traction here because I've never had this many people in and out talking, so that's great to see. Again, you guys can actually give me customization advice if you want, and I will take it, at my own risk. If I feel like it's good, I'll update a model, a past model. Um, yeah, thank you, thank you. Yeah, I did a lot of work before I started streaming. I did a lot, hundreds and hundreds of jobs on Upwork and all that stuff. Just fine tuning, trying to figure out what people find valuable, and trying to build stuff that's just generally reusable. Holy cow, we got a fourth viewer in here. I don't think we've ever had four at one time. Welcome. Uh, man, I literally I've been streaming for 2.5 hours now building this thing out. I'm just about done. So I don't have a whole lot of content left for today. If you guys have any questions or whatever, I'll take that real quick. I'm supposed to be honestly mowing. I was supposed to start mowing the yard half an hour ago, but we got kind of busy in here, so I stayed on. Oh, I guess not. Back down to two. Look this up real quick. Oh. Yeah, my PayPal must be delayed. All right. Well, it's 7:30. I'll be on next Monday. We're gonna probably do a vending machine model. If you want to come in at that one, you'll see how I do different revenue assumptions for that, which it'll be different than this. But the bike shop model, I guess, is pretty much done. Um, yep, for sure. Alrighty, Justin and Greg, if you're there still, I will catch you later.